Thank you, Mike. And that falling of the microphone will also be heard around the world. Thank you all. I have 2 points to make tonight, only 2 because it's only 20 minutes. And before I get to the first point, I'm going to tell a little story about what happened to me the other day at Thomas More College, and I wrote about this in the Catholic Thing, which appeared today, but I don't suppose you all have read the Catholic Thing. It was the first time that such a thing had happened to me in my now 34 years of teaching at college. I started teaching freshman composition in 1985. This never happened to me before. So this was at my 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock humanities class. We were in ancient Rome. We've just finished with Lucretius's On the Nature of Things. We're making our way to Virgil. The kids have, it's a long class, it's 2 hours long, but they're in no hurry to leave. In fact, they usually stick around, a lot of them stick around for a few minutes afterwards to chat. And a couple of the young ladies stuck around the other day because they have they had a poetry night coming up, a poetry recital. And they were we were talking about what poem they would be doing, each one of them would be doing. Now, the idea of committing to heart a work of great literature is foreign to most people. But if you think about it, it's the one way that anybody has, a commoner can have, of really possessing a great work of art. If you want to see Caravaggio's The Calling of St. Matthew, you've got to go to Rome to see that. But you don't have to go to Rome to commit a great poem, a great work of art to heart. So it came out that the two of these young ladies had decided upon the same poem. And it was Gerard Manley Hopkins' great poem, the sonnet God's Grandeur. Now, if I was anyplace else but here, or at Thomas More College, if I was at University of Connecticut or someplace, Lord forbid, everybody's eyes would glass over because I used the word poetry. And nobody would know who Gerard Manley Hopkins was. He's this great Catholic poet of the 19th century, a convert, along with Cardinal Newman, to the Catholic faith. And they recited together with me, unprompted, the poem, which I will recite for you now. Now, there's one tricky word in it. It's the word reck, R-E-C-K. It doesn't mean destroy. It means to acknowledge, to obey. They began without a hitch and ended without a hitch. The world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil, gathers to greatness like the ooze of oil crushed. Why do men then now not reck his rod? Generations have trod, and all is seared with trade, bleared, smeared with toil, and wears man's smudge, and shares man's smell. The soil is bare now, nor can foot feel being shod. But for all this, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest freshness deep down things. And though the last lights off the black west went, oh, morning at the brown brink eastward springs, because the Holy Ghost over the bent world broods with warm breast and with, bright wings. You see, you can hear pin drop now. I did this a few days ago in Birmingham, Alabama, to a group of two groups in Birmingham and Huntsville, to 2 groups of Catholic teachers for the Diocese of Birmingham. And though these teachers in Catholic schools down in the diocese know nothing about poetry, even their spirits were attentive because of the power of this music, the power of the imagination. That had not happened to me in 34 years. Okay. Why is it important? Why do I care about it? I look at, by the way, I am not a Chicken Little. I am not saying that the sky is going to fall. The sky fell years ago. Somebody said, well, one of these Facebook questions, what would you do if you were one of the last survivors of a fallen civilization? And my answer was, would? I am one. It isn't the case that unless we do something, the very thing, culture itself, will collapse around us. That's already happened. It already happened. So I'm not here to warn you about what's going to happen. I'm here to encourage you to do something constructive about it. And it has occurred to me with some pain in recent months. As we have watched, my family and I have watched some of the young people that we knew when we were homeschooling our kids 20 years ago. Watched as these young people, my daughter says, they are absorbed into whatever thing that is out there, Jabba the State. They are assimilated. And it's disappointing. And I have a feeling I know why. It is because the imagination in these cases was never formed when they were young. We have spent billions of dollars, haven't we? And it must be spent, some of it must be spent anyway, trying to get half-decent laws passed that favor marriage and the family, that favor life, or more often, to try to prevent absolutely dreadful laws from being passed. This is necessary work. And yet, what have we gained from all of that, practically speaking? We've gained some temporary and partial victories, very temporary and very partial, only to find them absolutely overwhelmed by the next cultural collapse, cultural loss. So I have been thinking lately that not only in this case must we put our hope in a restoring of culture, it is almost the only hope, I'm speaking in human terms and earthly terms here, that we have. The imagination is going to lead us, or it's going to lead us to heaven, or it's going to lead us to hell. It's the thing, it's the one thing needful when it comes to raising young people, now I'm persuaded, and changing whatever it is out there that is called by the name of culture, but is not. I like to think about the silly old joke where Satan and St. Peter have gotten together a ball club, and St. Peter thinks that he's going to have a grand time winning because he's got Lou Gehrig and Stan Musial and all the other great good men of baseball. How can Satan possibly win? And Satan says, well, I don't care about that. I have all the umpires. Well, I imagine that Satan makes a similar deal with, would take a similar deal with God. You can have your occasional political victories. You can have a solid catechism. You can have actually solid theological teaching or catechetical teaching in your schools. You can even have a married mother and father and some decent order in the household anyway. You can have a variety of things in place. If you give him the imagination, it's over. Okay? That's all. He doesn't need any more. Everything else is icing on the cake for him. If he has the imagination, barring a miracle of God's grace, he has the person. If he has the imagination, he's got the whatever we should call it, which is not a culture. He's got that. That's it. It's over. Okay. Who said so besides me? Everybody said so. C.S. Lewis said so because Plato said so. C.S. Lewis recalled the great metaphor that Plato used of the soul, with the tripartite soul, with rationality being in the seat of the charioteer, that chariot being led by two horses, one wayward but one noble. The wayward horse is the appetite. It will always go towards immediate, gross, earthly fulfillment of its passions. But that noble horse can be directed by reason. And it has a view of real beauty. It is on fire for that beauty. The noble horse, if well trained, can put the curb on the wayward horse. That charioteer is going someplace. And he's either going towards this great and noble vision of beauty, or he's going in the direction of the appetite. There's no third option. It's going to be one or the other. Now, if we have not given our young people visions of true beauty, that doesn't mean that they won't go anywhere. They will go where the mass media has them go. They'll go mass entertainment. Mass entertainment, mass politics, and mass education, they're pretty much all the same thing, right? That's the direction they will go in. We know this, and we're painfully aware of it. Confessors are painfully aware that young people are accessing vilest things on the internet. By age 10, age 11, they are having their imaginations deformed everywhere. They're not going to stay unformed forever. They will be either formed to direct the soul and its longing towards beauty and goodness, or they will be deformed. And these days, unless you are really intentional about it, unless you're quite clear, you know where you're going and you know what there is out there to avoid, they will lapse back into that because it's the easiest thing. It's the most available thing. It's a heck of a lot easier to go click, click than it is to read a play by Shakespeare. And so they will do that, okay? Unless we reclaim the realm of the imagination, it's over. It's over. Now, in one sense, that task is quite difficult, right? Because you have no allies in it, at least no contemporary allies. All the schools are against you, really. They're all against you. Let me be clear, they're all against you. We have school systems that are run by people who actually think it's a good thing for young people to be introduced to perversions. Those are the minds that are directing your kids. That's it. There are no allies. The mass phenomena are no allies. Half the time your churches are no allies. We do have, however, in that sense it's a difficult task, but it's also the easiest task in the world because we have plenty of allies. We know who those allies are at Thomas More College. We have allies with names like Michelangelo, Dante, Bach, Brahms, Beethoven, Virgil, Homer, Aquinas, Augustine. They're our allies. All of them are our allies. What do they got? American Idol? The Bachelor. That's what they have. I've got Caravaggio. We have that. And people are starved for beauty. They need this vision of beauty. I'm absolutely persuaded these days that some of our moral problems are actually problems of the imagination. It is impossible for some young people even to imagine what it's like to lead a sexually continent life, to fall in love, really to fall in love and to get married and to have a bunch of kids and to be happy. They don't know. It's not in their field of imagination. Theoretically, they might know that it's possible. They can't imagine it. They can't imagine what it's like actually to worship God in fullness of heart. They have no vision of beauty. So in this sense, it's easy for us. We are not giving a competing vision of beauty. There is none, okay? We'd be the only game in town in that sense, but the only game with everything else pitted against us, everything else pitted towards the collapse, the sewer, and so on. Now, that's the point I'm going to make to you. And the second point following on the first is that's what goes on here at Thomas More College. I mentioned that anecdote not because it's unusual. I see there's things like that all the time. Every week, something happens to me at school that has not happened to me in 34 years. It's always something. These guys singing up here like this, that never happened to me before I came here. Mr. O'Connor here has been leading them in song since he was a freshman. He just shows up as a freshman and says, we need to have a scola. That's never happened, right? That happens here. Now think. This is actually kind of depressing to think, but I'm going to put it in a good light. If there were 100 schools like Thomas More College all across the country, we would still be only educating about the number of students that are at a small to medium-sized state college, state university. If there were 100 such at Thomas More. However, Thomas More College and places like it, there aren't that many. They are perhaps the only game in town. If you want to invest in that, in one sense very difficult, but in another sense very easy because we got all the allies on our side, like Michelangelo. If you want to invest in the restoration of culture, properly speaking, both folk culture, real vibrant popular culture, high culture, all of it, this is it. Not going to happen at the University of Connecticut. It's not going to even happen at my old school, not anymore. St. used to be Catholic College. Not happening there. However, imagine what happens when, say we have 100 students right now, and some of those students go forth and they may lead very private lives, but private lives of sanctity and goodness. Lord knows what happens, what secret, wonderful things happen because of those lives. Some of them will lead maybe more public lives. We are the seed corn for this restoration. This student over here may begin a new classical Christian school. They are popping up all over the place, but from where, except from students like the ones that we graduate here? We could use 100 where everyone is now, but there are a heck of a lot more than there were even 15 years ago. Classical Christian movement is, I think, not even that old, right? And that person over there, perhaps, may revive the original and noblest of human arts, poetry, now fallen into abeyance because the cold hand of academia is at its throat. And who knows but what kinds of greenery may grow up from there. This student over here may rejuvenate a parish, not by being bossy and leading a liturgical committee, but by maybe reintroducing young people to what music is all about, sacred music in particular. It's here, and few places like here, or nowhere, I am thinking now. And sure, yes, I understand giving to political action committees. All that money, and what do we got? What do we got, right? We don't even know what a boy and a girl are. That's what we got. But to give here is to, I think, give to the taproot of what will be. And I won't maybe be alive to see it, but will be a Christian culture again. Thank you.